I remember punching kids in the nose for no reason.
You remember this in nursery school?
I remember doing that and walking to the corner, sitting down.
You had a psychotic break because that was induced by LSD.
Exactly.
Right.
I got my career now, and then all of a sudden, yeah. And so I had to go to Kaiser psychiatry. My new personality was the crazy guy. The amazing part about that was I would have never learned how healing music really was.
You're looking back and connecting the dots about how we become who we are.
Well, it's like if your parents are raising you to be the adult that you're going to be, so are your friends. You get dropped up at school. You don't see your parents till like maybe 5:36 every day. You want some Whoopi Goldberg stories?
Sure.
One day, Chris and we were like 14, looking for some herb. So Chris broke into her apartment, stole some weed, and then by the time we were high and she got home later, we were all paranoid and stoned. We felt bad, and we invited her to smoke with her.
What's her weed?
We fall down, but we get up.
Welcome back to Hometown Friends, the only podcast that focuses on our most foundational friendships and the stories that define our lives. Our show is supported and produced by Tribe One, a nonprofit organization that seeks to reduce loneliness and isolation with social health initiatives that lead people to experience the powerful benefits of human connection. This podcast is intended to be an initiative for social health because it highlights the power of human connection through conversations. This episode centers on a local artist and musician from Berkeley, California. Musashi, or Moose Lethridge, as he's called, will share a bit of his life story and make connections between how he grew up, the friends that he met along the way, and the trials and tribulations that he went through to become the man he is today. I've seen Moose perform many times in local clubs and bars, especially in the 1990s in the Bay Area music scene. I would often see him at local coffee shops, and because he was a familiar face, I felt like I knew him. But I never really had a conversation with him until I sat down with him on this podcast. It's amazing that a podcast can offer an opportunity authentically for two people to have a truly connected conversation and get to know each other. Although these episodes are edited down, the full unedited episodes are always available to anyone who's interested. Our goal is to give our audience an opportunity to hear some of the best parts of the interview, and through this edited version, get to know our guest. This episode will cover how children respond to experiencing parents with addiction and violence issues, how children gain status on the schoolyard, and how identity is formed in middle school. Also, how early exposure to music creates both a lifelong focus and the ways that it can bring us together and can actually heal the brain. Please share this show with your friends, subscribe, and follow this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and take a moment to comment and rate our show. It means a lot to get feedback from all of our listeners, and if you want to keep us on the air, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to our 501c3 organization. Please enjoy this conversation with a man they call Moose.
Beginning to end, yeah. Hometown friend.
Beautiful. Well, that was beautiful. Moose, welcome to the Hometown Friends podcast, my friend.
Good morning.
Good morning. Having conversations with people is super important. And this is what a lot of this podcast is all about, is having conversations with people that I've seen around my community and I don't know. And we don't know each other that well, but we're getting to know each other. And I hope that this conversation is about connecting with each other and getting to know each other better. And then the idea that we're going to talk about your life and the connections that you have with yourself and the connections you have with your friends and the connection you have with where you came from in your hometown, because I think that's what this is all about.
Man, if you're implying I have a life, that's a good start.
You definitely have a life, my man.
I'm enjoying the heck out of it, too.
And for all the listeners, you have seen Moose throughout Berkeley. If you're from Berkeley and you've been around the Bay Area and you've been to the few coffee shops that inhabit the South Side, you have definitely seen Moose around playing music talking to people and sharing his wisdom, and he's going to definitely share it with us today. And very excited to get to know you a little bit and hear your story and how these hometown friends have made a difference in our lives.
Man, you would, yeah. Spanning centuries, too.
Well, we are old enough to have many, many people in our lives that have helped us and supported us and given us resilience and connected with us. So I'm very curious of your story. Let's start from the beginning, Moose. Where you come from and tell us about that name.
Yeah, and I do spell it Moose. Coincidentally, it's a Native American name, by the way, and I'll tie that in a second. I do have Cherokee blood on my dad's side, who's black and Cherokee and a little bit Irish. We discovered, and then my mother is Japanese American. She's third generation here. I'm fourth generation Japanese American. They both met at the Berkeley post office, working. He ended up being like a supervisor there later, and that's a whole other story. And so I was born in '69 at Brookside Hospital as Paul Musashi Lethridge. The explanation of my name is that most half Japanese children that are born usually have a workable first name that Americans can use, like Paul is my first name, and then we get the Japanese middle name to identify with that, our culture, and then usually the surname is from the husband, and in this case that's true. So I get a English first name, Japanese middle name, and English last name, and of course then Moose is short for Musashi, and that I was named after Miyamoto Musashi, the famous Ronin samurai from the 17th century Japan.
Wow.
The guy who wrote the Book of Five Rings. I mean, the military still uses his book. The lawyer firms still use his book.
Wow.
It's just one of those staples. I've been reading it since, like 4 or 5 years old. It's a wealth of information if you ever want to go on that journey. That and the art of war and any Zen Buddhism and the Tao Te Ching is what I'm a fan of. So Moose is short for Musashi because when I was a toddler, I was big. I was round and rotund, and I ate like a horse. But that wasn't part of my middle name, or else I would have been Horsashi, which sounds more Italian. Right? So shortening Moose from Musashi was my mom's, just like that's her brain. She's funny. That's where I get a lot of my humor from. And my dad too. He's the one that named me Miyamoto Musashi, because I could have been named after my father, which would have been Richard Lethridge the fourth, which it sounds like I should be running an empire if I got a name like that, right?
It's a very powerful name for sure.
Yeah, I could have been King Richard the fourth, but instead they went with Paul Musashi Lethridge, and she gave my dad permission to pick the name because that's how decisions are made at the house. So
tell us about where you're from. Tell us about the neighborhood you grew up in.
Berkeley till I was 3, and then my sister was born. We moved to North Oakland when my sister was born in '72, and been there ever since. Living, the house was bought. They've got it for like 21 grand, and and that's when North Oakland was like an Italian working class neighborhood, and it was diverse. People were, good morning, hello, and aware, and adults used to bust kids, bring them home and go, is this your child? Remember, it was a community where every child is raised by all the adults. I spent a lot of time in the corner in trouble.
Really?
Yeah. I remember punching kids in the nose for no reason.
Really?
Yeah.
And you remember this in nursery school?
I remember doing that and walking to the corner, sitting down like a jerk. Yeah.
Like you already knew that timeout was coming, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember,
Tell me why you think that was happening with you. And you have another story to tell about that. So.
Oh, yeah. That is derived from the typical alcoholic family that we all survived in the 70s. There's no therapy. There was no CPS. It was just what your parents could handle.
Wow.
Right? And of course, this hindsight perspective is from my adult brain.
Of course.
right? So I can't really put myself in the intellect that I was back then, but I can tell you that me being that having that behavior at preschool is a direct reflection of the violence we were dealing with at home, um, and that's because of alcohol.
Yeah.
And we just dealt with it until, and it was rampant everywhere, and nobody discussed it because it was private.
It's ruined a lot of lives in our country and in our society for many, many reasons over time. But you're speaking specifically about your experience as being in a violent household, and right away expressing that frustration and violence and learned behavior in preschool, and then beyond that, with I think you have a story about going to elementary school, the first day of school. You want to tell that story?
Yeah. The first school I went to was Chabot. It was very 1950s. I pledged allegiance. I lasted about a half a year there before I was so uncomfortable. I remember the fire drills used to scare the shit out of me. I thought it was like we were all going to die or whatever. I wasn't really a violent person. It was just, I knew it was in me.
Yeah.
And I was always goofy and, funny and, trying to be charming, kind of a little kid. But the first day at school, the day before I had orientation, I remember being told where to line up when the school bell rang when you get there. So we got there early, dropped me off, and basically stood like a foot away from where the line was supposed to be. Bell rang, me in line first. First day of school, great start, right? And all of a sudden, I got knocked on my ass. Everyone, I'd never seen anyone at the school before, and everybody was lining up to, for school. So everybody was watching, and I got up, and I remember at first I thought like, must be some kind of joke. Like this is how they greet the new guys or something, or I don't know. And I just got up, kind of nervously smiled and pushed him back. And then all of a sudden I found out, he was ready to do that, circle shoulder touch thing that we used to do in grade school right before fights. But he went to push me again, and I didn't really go back as far. And that's when I realized, oh, this guy is not messing around here. So I pushed him. I remember I pushed him one more time. And his third push, I just grabbed him, spun, and threw him on his back. And, it was like an early MMA moment. But I basically was just like trying to like punch him until somebody pulled me off.
Wow.
That's all I could do. And so technically I won the fight, and he turned out to be the class bully, and I earned his respect. But I'd also somehow earned everyone else's respect around me.
So that's a very interesting small moment of the way power and aggression actually works to put people in place and to actually have them defer to other people.
He taught me in a moment to be this person. Isn't that weird? Like that one little nuance is such an
Yeah, you found out you are not allowing people to push you around. You are going to meet violence with violence.
I'd already failed protecting my mother.
Wow.
You can imagine, the pain of being the oldest son, not being able to do that. We were having a hard time at the house. It reflected in the way we played. And if you noticed why certain friends were, roided out more, you'd be like, maybe he's got the same shit that's going on at my house at your house. And we talk about it. You could see someone got a welt on their face when they show up in the morning. So
Wow.
And, yeah. And that's when people would have to go pick their own switches. We had friends over in Oakland where their mother would bring them in the house while we were all playing and whip them with the switches for like an hour. And we just have to hang out because my friend's house is right next door. And the brothers would come out just like out of a war. It was traumatic.
You're talking about some really, really painful, abusive situations that you're saying many of the people you witnessed growing up with had, and you were somewhat familiar with that in some way.
Oh, dude, it was like Stand By Me, but just in the driveway. The whole adventure of movie of these kids going through all this, but it was just all in the drama of like listening to your friends get beaten by their mother throughout the house. It was crazy, but it was normal.
So, but friends make a difference to allow us to get to have the more positive areas, right? If you're going through that as a little kid in a home, if you can't feel safe in your own home, you're probably something's happening outside that home that could actually help you survive and
Yeah.
thrive.
Plus, your creative mind is in an amygdala, and you're looking for something for the coping method.
Essentially, like you said, you're looking back and connecting the dots about how we become who we are through these different experiences.
Right. Well, it's like if your parents are raising you to be the adult that you're going to be, so are your friends, because you get dropped off at school. You don't see your parents till like maybe 5:36 every day.
That's right.
And you can ask every parent during the pandemic about that. Remember, because nobody was prepared to be around their family or anybody for that close for that long.
Tell us about the first time you got a chance to be exposed to music.
There was a babysitter, teacher / artist, hippie, beautiful spirit lady named Miss Davis. She played guitar, and at the end of the day, she would gather everybody, and we'd end the day with like maybe 10 songs that we'd sing. Oh, it was incredible! Like, so Puff the Magic Dragon, The Cat Came Back, the 500 Miles, all those old folk songs that you'd hear like Burl Ives do.
Yeah.
We were singing with her, and then
that was the 70s when people were playing guitar for these little kids.
Yeah.
Maybe they still do this. I don't know. All the kids at their feet, and they're playing guitar, and they're exposing kids to this music, this music of connection, this music of we all lend our voices. They're simple enough that we can all lend our voices and sing together, and that creates connection, doesn't it?
Not only that, but it's got the harmonic healing quality. So she was able to teach me the basic chords of Puff the Magic Dragon on the acoustic guitar that we had at the house. And so that was the first song I learned how to play all the way through. But the first song I learned how to play by listening and figuring it out was this chromatic bass line by Stevie Wonder.
Can you play it for us?
Well, it was just actually I don't know what key it's in, but it's just I got everybody in the fam to gather around the living room and go watch, and it was like doom 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 doom. The melody was what? I ain't gonna stand for it, baby.
Yeah.
It was that. I can't sing it right
I know
now.
that song. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody knows that song. It's a great song.
I learned guitar on my own at the house, but I was also playing orchestral symphonic band stuff at school, learning the clarinet. And I also signed up for jazz band. And, I'm like 12 years old, and I started clarinet, but the teacher wanted me to switch to bass clarinet because you needed a bass clarinet, and he figured I could do it. And I took it up. So I was playing bass clarinet sitting next to none other than Josh Redman, the guy that you go to Yoshi's and you see his picture up on the wall. And I'm just like, I went to school with that guy, Willard.
Can I tell my own story about Willard?
Oh,
because I love my stories. Everybody loves their own stories.
What year were you at Willard?
I was probably there in 8th grade when you were there in 7th grade, because you're a year younger than I. So we were likely there at the same time because Josh is in my class. So I'm 1 year older than you, Moose.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And in 7th grade, I think in 8th grade too, I was 5 feet 185. So I was a big kid. Got called the fat kid all the time. But Moose, I had friends. I had Miles Perkins to be my friend. I had Roger Armstrong to be my friend. I had Rich Stroud to be my friend. These guys never teased me. They didn't tease me because they were my friends, and they gave me resilience. And I had a lot of friends, actually. But I did get teased a lot because fat kids get teased. But I was also, and I want to give some credit, to some people. I was Mr. Nakamura, who's a legendary basketball coach in Berkeley history.
I remember
He
Nakamura.
chose me to be the manager. I wanted to be around sports, but I was pretty good at baseball, but I wasn't, certainly not a basketball player. I was short and fat, and truthfully was one of the only white kids on that team, although there were a couple other white kids on the team. A lot of them were, over 6 feet and dunking. And there's a kid named Todd Blakely, who, rest in peace. Todd passed on. He actually got shot by his brother, I believe, in a tragic situation. However, at that point, he was the star of the team, and he was dunking on fools in 8th grade. And we were going to the tournaments all over and I would get in and I would, pick up the balls and hand people their towels and give them water. And I was part of the team. I was belonging on the basketball team. And when I got teased in the hallways, I remember Todd Blakely coming up to me one day and slapping me on, like giving me 5 and be like, "What's up, Chan?" And then all these kids, speaking of the status game, all these kids who were giving me shit looked at him and he kind of glared at them and he was like, "If you got something to say about Chan, why don't you talk to me about it?"
Right.
And no one ever teased me after that, because I had Todd Blakely, similar to your story, who was, had high status, bring me into his world and put his arm around me and give me a high five. And, that is an amazing thing that I really thank Todd for. Again, rest in peace. And that's those kind of moments say you're cared for. Somebody's got your back.
Yep.
And you can feel scared and alone and hurt. But if somebody, one person who has high status can give you a little love.
Yeah,
exactly. So that was a moment in time, similar to one of the things that you were talking about, that, I think hometown friendships and people from childhood, people who give you attention and protect you, those are resilient moments. Those things live inside of us. And Todd Blakely lives inside of me, a protector. Right. So let's talk more about the music and how you got into music. And obviously at this point in our story, you are at Willard Junior High. You're in 6th or 7th and 8th grade, and you're starting to play orchestra and jazz. And you're realizing, I'm not I'm not a soloist for the clarinet, but something else happened.
8th grade, I was still friends. My best friends were Mark and Alex. Our friendship basically came to an end at a confrontation.
Oh.
But I just parted ways with him one day, and pretty much all of those people that were playing basketball, football, all the black crowd was basically who I was associated with. Next day, I started hanging out with Chris. I'm not going to say his last name, but he was this white rocker dude that I'd been hanging out with just sporadically. And literally the next day, I went and found my dad's army jacket, jeans, T-shirt, Converse, and I was just like, I'm gonna hang out with this rocker crowd. I was writing band names on my jeans before I knew who they were.
Interesting. Because you were identifying with them. You were creating an identity.
Yeah, pretty much. And so he introduced me to all the crazy rocker and metal heads and punk rockers in all of Berkeley. Okay, he lived above Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, okay.
Do you want some Whoopi Goldberg stories?
Sure.
So we used to babysit her daughter because they were, Chris's mom was the adult there, and she was friends with, her because Whoopi was already getting famous. She did work at a morgue, and she did practice her comedy there, like that.
Whoopi Goldberg worked at a morgue. I didn't know that.
One of the funniest things though is that one day Chris and we were 14 looking for some herb, and Whoopi was a partaker. So Chris broke into her apartment, stole some weed, and then by the time we were high and she got home later, we were all paranoid and stoned. We felt bad. We were like, why would we do that? I remember, and we invited her to smoke with her. So we smoked the weed we stole. We didn't tell her.
It was her weed.
And my other Right? What a resolve for teenage boys, right? Why don't we just smoke it with her and then it'll be fine?
That's a good story.
So, and the other story is when we almost burned the house down. Okay, so we were in the basement, bored. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night on a weeknight, and I was just there, hanging out. We spend the night and go to school the next day. We lit a little fire under there in the basement. All of a sudden, I look through the grate, the vent, and I see Whoopi Goldberg's chicken legs and her slippers, and I hear her voice, Chris, is that you down there? That better be you down there burning down my motherfucking house, Chris. And we were like, oh shit! We put the fire out, and we just booked out of there. But
Wow.
yeah, we scared the shit out of her because smoke was coming up into her apartment. We were stupid. So dumb.
Well, again, moments of connecting with friends, doing stupid shit, but also exciting. I mean, that's one of the things about hometown friendships is we do stupid stuff, we do exciting stuff. We get and we get feedback about it. And these moments, actually, it's interesting that you're talking about them because these moments do. They resonate. I guess they're forgotten in a lot of ways, but when we think about them, they actually create sort of, again, an identity, or they create the story of our lives, right? How did that feel? Like, okay, you're identifying with the rocker. You said you didn't even know the music, but now you're becoming friends with somebody who's a rocker. You're painting things on your jeans. Tell us about what it felt like to see these bands.
Okay, you remember Nightmare Before Christmas, the Tim Burton movie?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine like entering that world for the first time and loving it. That's what it was like. I was like, we get to do this? Oh my, this is amazing.
It's like Halloween.
Forever. Yeah, we basically kind of, just had Halloween every day. LA in the 80s was like Motley Crue and hairspray and dressing up like a girl and putting lipstick on and doing it that way. And Slayer escaped that, and so did Metallica, and they came up here because we were the rowdy, berserkly and East Bay hardcore. We had a serious scene, like New York CBGB style.
Okay,
that was like the Omni, Ruthie's Inn, Berkeley Square.
So
I drew
this
the flyer.
Is that aggressiveness coming out in the music, the through line, as they say, through your life.
We were inspired by Exodus, Metallica, and Slayer, and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath. But yeah, it was crazy because we were so rowdy in the venues.
There's something really important about the aggression that people are expressing in some controlled way.
Well, when boys are developing our testosterone levels, it's just how we become familiar with them, I would think, as a species, for one. And we wanted to be Exodus and Metallica and Slayer. And so we started a band called Sacrilege BC. And
nice.
Oh yeah, here you go.
Okay.
Blast from the Past.
Nice.
So that's me on
picture.
Top.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
everybody's got some long hair for sure.
Oh yeah. That's Tim, and then next to him is Streffen, and then Gary on lead guitar, and then Matt, one of the most amazing thrash drummers ever. And then me on bass, and I wrote like 8 or 9 tunes pretty quick so that we could start playing that Easter Bunny Massacre show. And, we were doing stuff like we were playing that kind of like Slayer speed. This band started off of friendship.
Yes.
Chris introduced me to Tim. Me and Tim started hanging out, and then all of a sudden Chris was kind of left, as not the hang out, because we started this band, and there was no regrets. It's just we switched cliques.
Let's continue on a little bit with this Musashi story of music and uplifting by friends. And it sounds you said you actually had a friend who helped you recover.
I did too much LSD. The last time I did it, I got a bad hit of LSD, and you know, I pretty much went catatonic, but it was this paranoia that was really scary for my parents. I can't imagine like watching their child, because I was a rock star. I was like, I'm done. Fuck school. I'm a musician.
Right.
I got my career now. And then all of a sudden, "Ew." And so I had to go to Kaiser psychiatry, and be all of a sudden now my new personality was the crazy guy, but I was actually really fucked up.
Yeah.
You know?
You had a psychotic break because that was induced by LSD.
Exactly. The amazing part about that was I would have never learned how healing music really was.
This is a big turn to your life. You were hospitalized and then recovering from essentially a drug overdose or a bad trip.
So like I said, I was catatonic, and for maybe like 3 months, from what I remember, which included the homeschooling from Mr. Orser up at my grandmother's house, which happened to be down the street from my bandmate Chris, because I had started a band called Berkeley Chill Factor with him at some point, and he was able to pick me up, bring me to the studio, put my bass in my lap, and then he would leave me in the rehearsal room by myself. And I was able to come out of my depressive catatonic state within weeks, because I'm pretty sure it kicked in my cognitive memory again. And I was able to, because I could hear, I could nod, I could watch TV and function and eat and whatever, but I just couldn't form physical sound out of my throat. And that's the music, because I'd been in a band already. I had been writing composition and rehearsing and learning how to play guitar, and I was able to take that and teach myself how to talk again. And I'll never forget him for that. And so once I knew that music was the thing I wanted to do, and now it had this practical purpose of healing, I was hooked, man. And so that gave me the strength and the faith to keep at it. And I mean, I haven't. It's it. After that, I was like in the '90s, man. I was playing like 4 different bands, rehearsing, like all week, maybe double booking myself over the weekends, like having to run from a gig in San Francisco back to the East Bay to make it to like if I was playing at Blake's headlining.
Being in a band has got to be a very friendly environment. It's one of the things, obviously, that is so essential to the human experience is the collaboration with other people and being friendly with other people and playing music with other people. It's kind of the perfect storm of friendness, friendliness, or friendship in general.
Let me stop you right there. As far as that's what you want to project on stage.
Yeah.
That's what you want the audience to see. It's a marriage.
Yes.
And it's mostly work and dealing with the drummer, dealing with the bass player that's always late or whatever. There's always something that's going to offset that what started it was the friendship. When I became a member of the English Beat, I was cooked, man. I was like, for the first tour, we went out with Fishbone. I went out with all my heroes. I had somehow found this ska music and went to the direct top. What other Bay Area guitar player has played with the English Beat? Ska music is like country music, and the only difference is that the drum beat, the hand clap, is just in a different place. It's literally the same song, right? And like here's a country song, like right? Now, if you just use this and you clap, it becomes ska reggae. But if you count it on the clap, that's country.
Wow.
So it turns out if you clap twice as fast and work extra harder, it's country. Reggae is just like, oh, hey man, only clap half the time, man, and take it easy. But that's literally, once I discovered that, writing ska tunes was just as simple as like, I mean, it's already a song going. That's like all of the songs from the 50s, right? And ska basically came from it was all the 50s R&B doo-wop that the brothers are doing, like, on the radio. And
Wow.
the Jamaicans will tell you that's where we got the sound from.
Yeah.
Is that was their rebel music. Jamaican was just freed by the British Crown in '59. So by the time 1964 came, their scene was livid because they were celebrating their freedom.
Yeah. It's so beautiful to be able to hear you live in these stories of your life and to share them with us all and to discuss how other people made a difference to you. Just these small moments, these friendships, these ways of being. Tell everybody who you are today, what you're doing today.
When you go through your junk drawer when you're cleaning your house up, I just did that with my entire music catalog of writing since I was 15. I just got my music energy back to 100. I'm about to start again, and it's what the Japanese call it your samurai years. You basically spend your first 50 years or your first half of your life accumulating knowledge, and then you spend the latter half just forgetting all that stuff, because you have to see what you learn by applying it without it's like when Bruce Lee says at first it's a punch, and then it's not a punch, and then it's just a punch again. While you're learning the punch, you don't know what it is anymore, because you're trying to figure out what is this. Before you had any information about it, it was just that. And after all that process, once again, it's just that. And that's kind of what music and songs are.
I'm so grateful to be able to get to know you just a little bit in this conversation, to have a conversation with a person that I have seen throughout the community who has a wealth and a whole story about and a weaving its way from a family to the outside world to a musician to someone who is at the coffee shop talking to people, sharing his life, sharing his music, and the opportunity to get to know you, but also to have you share your story and the ways in which you have grown and now what you're doing in life. And I really appreciate the opportunity to get to know people on this podcast and for people to share their stories with me.
This is one of the greatest things, as far as what I think men need to do this more often. Honestly, because we don't talk, dudes, we don't vibe emotionally with each other off anything because there's just no time. But when you can, you have a lot of things to sort out. And if you can do it comfortably with, because we used to do this high in the 80s, like sitting on the beach, just it's 4 a.m. and you're just like, yeah, man, I think my dad is awesome now that he doesn't drink.
There's nothing more important, and it actually goes into the research about how social connection makes life worth living. It is the most important research finding that I am finding through all of this project. And I hope that this has a ripple effect throughout our community and throughout other communities, because friendships matter. It's good to talk, to revisit them, connect with them, find your stories that align with each other, and remember. The act of remembering these people in our lives builds resiliency.
Man, you said it beautifully. You don't miss something until it's gone.
So I want to just share one more gratitude. Thank you so much, Moose, for being
Arigato.
on the podcast.
Yep.
Great to see you. See you at the coffee shop.
Yes, you will.
All right.
Barracudas.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you really appreciated hearing a bit of Moose's story, as it's a wonderful example of how we can all look back at our lives and through conversations make connections and bring more awareness to how we've grown and learned to become who we are today. Moose provided a great example of vulnerability and honesty in this interview. Like all humans, Moose has experienced the highs of success and the lows of some of the most challenging life events. I loved getting to talk to him about all the bands that he played in and hearing him play his guitar for all of us. One of the most moving things that Moose discussed was the power of music to connect us and to heal us. Music is often how children, and middle school particularly, create connections. And specific to the hometown friend experience is that music really connects friendships. Moose's story about his first getting exposed to music through teachers playing folk music on guitars is so resonating, as it brings me back to my own exposure to music, singing songs with my classmates in kindergarten and experiencing harmonies that provide a uniquely human experience. In some cases, like with Moose, it leads to a lifelong passion and a crystallization of a life's calling. Related to this was the powerful story that he told about his friend helping him heal from a drug-induced catatonic state, and how Moose experienced the powerful healing properties of music. There are multiple clinical case studies and clinical descriptions of where individual patients with catatonia or elective mutism regain responsiveness or begin to interact with their therapists who use the familiar and or personally meaningful songs to engage the multiple parts of the brains that might be damaged. And in Moose's case, it began the process of a dramatic recovery. As Hans Christian Andersen is quoted to have said, "When words fail, music speaks." If you have a story about a friend who helped you heal, let us know about it. Or better yet, reach out to them to thank them. If you appreciate what we're doing, please subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Hometown Friends Pod, and send us a note or a comment. If you can help our show grow, or you have a guest to suggest, please contact us directly through the links that we provide in the show notes. Stay tuned and stay connected.
We fall down, but we get up.